Hello everyone, this is Ryan with E5 Sigma. A few months back, we created a couple of quick videos showing you how to use Ubiquiti's UniFi Talk with a third-party SIP provider in two different ways, via IP-based authentication and via standard SIP registration. Since we made those videos, we've been contacted by a few different carriers as well as end users looking for help in using UniFi Talk with different providers. Today we'll be continuing our video tutorial series by showing you how to use UniFi Talk with Twilio. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone to like and subscribe this channel. We plan on furthering our UniFi Talk instructional videos. We also plan to add other DIY content pertaining to things like cell phone repair, game console repair, and even some micro soldering. So be sure to like and subscribe. You definitely don't want to miss some of the next videos we'll be adding in the future. Additionally, if anyone out there has any suggestions on how we can improve the quality of our videos or would like to give us a hand with editing, please feel free to drop us a line. Now, Twilio is a very well-known carrier in the VoIP world. They offer things like programmable voice, APIs to create VoIP apps, real-time messaging systems, streaming APIs, and a plethora of more features. Ubiquiti's own VoIP offering even utilizes the Twilio platform. But what if you have your own Twilio account or would prefer to go directly to the underlying carrier? Then this tutorial is for you. We were actually contacted by a UniFi Talk end user who specifically asked if we'd be able to get UniFi Talk working with Twilio. This prompted us to set up a test account and get things working. Today we're going to show you the step-by-step process we followed in getting inbound and outbound calling working with Twilio and UniFi Talk. This tutorial is going to be a little different and a bit more involved than the other UniFi Talk integration videos we've done previously. Twilio's system is extremely robust, feature-rich, and requires a bit of configuration. I also want to mention that you'll either need to know your public dynamic IP address, have a static IP address, or use some sort of dynamic DNS service in order to get UniFi Talk working correctly with Twilio. This is due to some of the carrier-grade features and settings that we'll need to leverage in order to get origination and termination working correctly between UniFi Talk and Twilio. I'm also going to record this tutorial a little bit differently. While I have already set up a paid Twilio account and confirmed that everything will work correctly, I'm going to actually do all of this live, create a new account from scratch, set everything up fresh, and see if we can get everything working correctly with a trial account. So you may need to bear with me along the way as I may need to ad-lib or improvise here and there. Okay, let's get to it. We're going to start with setting up a Twilio account. Okay, so let's get started with setting up a Twilio account. The first thing we're going to do is go to Twilio's website, twilio.com, in a browser. Next, we're going to click on Sign Up. And we will fill out this form here. This is just the basic information that we need in order to set up a Twilio account. Let me generate a password to use here. Accept the terms and conditions and click on Start Your Free Trial. And looks like we need to verify that we are a real person. Okay. All right, now at this point, Twilio has sent us a verification email. So I'm going to pull up my email here in another browser. And let's see, hopefully the confirmation email has arrived. Just waiting to log in here. Okay, great. I did receive the verification email. I'm going to click the Confirm Your Email link. Okay, and this is what we see. It wants us to put in a phone number to verify. I'm going to go ahead and do that in a separate window. All right, and with that phone number that we just entered for verification, Twilio is going to send us an SMS message, which I just got, and there will be a verification code that we have to enter. Once we do that, we'll click Submit, and again, I'm doing this in a separate window that is not being recorded currently. Okay, so after that, now we are brought to this screen here. So which Twilio product are we here to use? We're going to use voice. What do we plan to build with Twilio? Let's just go with other. How do you want to build with Twilio? We're going to say with no code at all. What's your goal today? Let's just say third-party integrations. And then we'll click on Get Started with Twilio. Cool. All right, so we are logged into our trial account here. Now, the next thing that we want to do is to activate a phone number. So under Develop, we'll go to Phone Numbers, Manage, Active Numbers, and let's click on Buy a Number. Okay, and we will search by our area code here, which is 361. Cool, and here's some numbers that we can choose from. I'm literally just going to pick the first one in the list here and click on Buy. We have to click that we agree to comply with the emergency calling terms and conditions, and then click on Buy. Great, now we can close this window here. Okay, now we have to set up some authentication credentials as well as some IP-based credentials so that we can get Twilio connected with UniFi Talk. So under phone numbers here, under voice, we're going to go to Manage and then Credential Lists. Here we're going to add a new credential list. We'll just call it credentials. Username, we can make Ryan-E5 Sigma. And a password I will generate in a different window here. And add it there. Click on Save. And I'm going to make a note of this password that I just created so we can use it later. Okay. All right, great. So we've got our credentials created here. The next thing that we want to do is to create an IP access control list entry for our public IP address here. Now, you can get this information by simply just going to myipaddress.com and then copying and pasting the value that's returned there. So we're going to create new access control list. We'll call it ACL E5 Sigma Office. And we'll put in our IP address here, create new ACL. Fantastic. That is everything we should need for our access control list. Okay, so we've got the ACL and authentication credentials set up. The next thing we need to do is continue building out our infrastructure here in Twilio to get everything set up to connect to UniFi Talk. So we're going to go to Voice, Manage, SIP Domains. And on this next page that comes up, there's going to be a link here that says Elastic SIP Trunking. We're going to click on that. Wait for it to load. Try reloading this screen. Okay, Manage Trunks. And we will create a new SIP trunk. We'll call it E5 Sigma-demo. And create. Everything here looks fine. We'll hit save. Then we'll choose termination from the menu on the left. In termination SIP URI, we'll put the same thing, E5 Sigma-demo. And now we'll choose the access control list that we created earlier and the credential list that we created earlier. We'll scroll down to the bottom here and click Save. Okay. That should be everything we need under termination. Now we'll go to origination, and we'll click on Add New Origination URI. What we need to do here is we need to put the same IP address that we put into our access control list, or if you're using dynamic DNS, you can use that value instead. But we need to put this in SIP URI format, and we need to specify the port that we want SIP traffic to come in on. So we're going to type SIP our IP address 6767, which is the port that UniFi Talk will use for SIP signaling when static SIP signaling inside of UniFi Talk is enabled. So we'll click on Add. And we can turn CNAM lookup on. That's caller ID lookup. And we'll click Save. Then we'll click on Numbers, add a number, add an existing number, and we'll choose the number that we purchased earlier. And here we'll click Add Selected. Okay, that is everything that we need, basically, from the Twilio side of things. We want to make note of the phone number that we purchased, and we'll copy it in E164 format because we'll need this in order to configure UniFi Talk. The next thing that we'll also have to do is under this elastic SIP trunk that we created for termination here, we've got this this URL, e5sigma-demo.pstn.twilio.com. We need to do an NS lookup on that address to get the corresponding IP addresses for that domain name so that we can put them inside of UniFi Talk as well. So let's go to nslookup.io, and we'll paste this in here. Great. And those are the IP addresses that we'll need for UniFi Talk. We're going to move on to setting up UniFi Talk next. Now that we have everything set up from the Twilio side of things, now we need to connect Twilio with UniFi Talk. So I'm going to bring over the window here for our UDM Pro. And we just want to make sure that everything is set up correctly before we connect everything. So the first thing we're going to do is go to Settings. Wait for this screen to load. Then we'll go to Updates. And if you happen to see a blue update button here for UniFi Talk, go ahead and click it, let the update process run, and then come back to this after the update completes. Next, we'll go to the UniFi Talk section, and we'll go to Devices, and check out our devices here. If any of these also need a firmware update, go ahead and apply that now, and again, wait for the update to apply, and then come back. All right, let's get everything set up with Twilio. Let's go to Settings, System Settings, and the first thing we want to do is enable static signaling port. So we'll toggle this, and this is going to give us a message about NAT traversal, and we're just going to go ahead and hit Create to allow the underlying system to create the rules that we're going to need for static signaling ports. And then I just like to reload this page and just make sure that this button is toggled. All right, great. So now we can add a third-party SIP provider. I'm going to call this one Twilio with demo in parentheses. And let's start adding the custom fields that we'll need. And we won't need many for this one. We'll need username, password, proxy, and register. We can click on Done. Now here under proxy, we're going to put in the address that we set up under elastic SIP trunking inside of Twilio. So for this demo, it'll be e5sigma-demo.pstn.twilio.com. And I have that here, so let me just copy and paste it over. pstn.twilio.com. Oh, that goes in proxy, not username. Username will be e5sigma-demo, which we set up earlier. and a password that we had also generated earlier. We'll set register to false. Now for destination countries, for outbound calling, we'll select United States, and we'll save that. For the numbers here, we're going to put in the phone number that we purchased through Twilio. And again, this needs to be an E164 format. Once it's pasted in or typed in, just press the enter key on your keyboard. The number will drop below here. And the last step is we need to add in the IP addresses for our endpoint. And we can do that from the results that we got from nslookup.io. So we'll just copy and paste each one of these over into UniFi Talk. In our case here, there are 4 addresses. You may have more or less. 4 seems to be the average number that Twilio gives you for your custom URL. All right, fantastic. Those are all added. So now we'll click on save. Okay, so now we can see our Twilio demo SIP provider added. The next thing that we will do is go to users and groups. We'll choose a user that we want to assign this number to. I'm going to refresh this page since we just got a little error message there, just to make sure everything is good. Cool, and we will click on manage, scroll down to change number, and we'll set it to this Twilio demo number that we purchased earlier. We'll click on save. And then we'll go to devices. And we just want to make sure that that number has been assigned to our device, which it has. Now, since this is a demo account that we're using from Twilio and not a paid account, you can only place calls to the verified phone number that you entered and verified during the sign-up process. And it's the same with inbound calling here. So in the background, I'm going to bring up my cell phone, which is the number that I used for verification. And I'm going to dial this, this number that we've added into Twilio. And I'm dialing that number, and you can hear our UniFi Talk phone ringing in the background. That takes care of inbound calling. And if you want to test outbound calling, you can do the same. Go to that UniFi Talk phone, but you do have to dial the number that you entered for verification purposes. Again, since this is a trial account, you only get to send and receive calls from verified numbers. If you were to upgrade that to a paid account by switching back over to your Twilio account, clicking upgrade, add a payment method, so on and so forth, then you'd be able to send and receive calls to all public telephone numbers. That pretty much takes care of everything with integrating UniFi Talk and Twilio. I hope this video has been instructional and helpful for UniFi Talk and Twilio users, for people who wanted to set up this configuration, even for VoIP or general enthusiasts. If you'd like to see us set up UniFi Talk with your specific carrier, or you'd like us to prepare a completely different type of tutorial, please feel free to leave us a comment below. You can also email us at info@e5sigma.com, or even contact us on Facebook. Thanks again, everybody, and we will see you next time with our next tutorial.